Good evening. I have a journal to share with you. I've been excited to try to make one of these for a long time, a more botanical journal, and I really like the way that it came out. I hope you guys do too. I used a very old American History Atlas book. The pages were so old that I couldn't save them because the minute you touched them they just like tore. But I saved the cover and I added 3 signatures, added a spine, and it's really, I kept like the inside cover, the original paper, because it's really nice and beautifully old. The corners were a little bit worn, so I worked on fixing them up so I don't think they'll all come unraveled anymore. And I added a tassel. It can come unclipped. It's just on a lobster claw. And we'll see. Put some vintage ephemera in it and did some inking and staining and stamping and gessoing, and I had a lot of fun. I made this pocket out of a file folder and loaded it up with a few things just to print out. I have a little envelope that's actually attached. The little piece of vintage paper, and the envelope is vintage, 1951. A tag I made. Another tag of some vintage music. I used some alcohol inks on it. A little bit of lace on top. Used some vintage fabric on the inside and on the outside cover. I really like this fabric here. I think it's very nice. And I cut this out of a 1800 book on botany. And then I gessoed the page of some brown paper. So you can still write on that. This came out of a flower catalog, plant catalog. It was an older one. I coffee stained it, put some tags on it. Added some silk leaves. Did a little bit of splattering with gesso. Coffee staining and inking. Sewed some pages together to make them a little bigger. So, a little bit of vintage music paper. Some stamping, a little bit of die cuts that I got, inventory sheet. This is an old seed catalog advertisement. I put a napkin on it, did some inking. This would be a great page to cover and leave little bits showing to journal with. I don't know if you can see that. I did some stamping on some tracing paper. A little tag. Each signature has a pocket set up in the middle. So these are just some pieces of the plant flower book that I thought you could use to add to the journaling. All of the paper clips in this are rusty. They're originally rusty. I got a bag from a estate sale and a lot of the paper clips in it were already rusty, and these are rusty little bits, and I covered them with Mod Podge so the rust won't come off on your fingers anymore, but you can still see it. This one is a little little gear. So, and this is a lot bigger piece that you can use. in journaling and building up pages. That's an actual vintage card. It has some writing on the back. And vintage stencil page. The other side of that envelope. And then I have some pattern paper in here. I added a couple pieces that I had left so you can use it for your journaling. And another vintage paper. I just did a little inking on this. I added a picture over the top. I glued it to it and then I did a little inking. Inventory page. I did a little embossing on it too. So that was fun. So stamping, splatters. I think splatters add a little to it. So I think I successfully got the botanical thing going here. This is the next signature. On a couple signatures I made backwards pockets. A whole piece of the paper that you can use and a old envelope from 1964. And then I started adding clusters. I did not staple or glue the clusters on because I want you to be able to move them, add them to pages, or keep them there. You could staple it or glue it yourself if you like it right where it's at. Then I have another little rusty pin here. So all of the clusters are just paper clipped. Little address card. This is from a vintage embroidery book, 1900s, early 1900s. This paper is an estate find. This is an estate find. I stained it with the dots. This came out of a book cover on the inside of an old book. Glassine envelope that I got from eBay. Vintage. Couple little pieces of things you can use in your journaling. Put the paper clip back in a little while. Some more estate find paper, both of them. This I printed off the internet. That's what I cut out for that first page. This is from an 1800s botany book. Or no, I think it's an entomology book about bugs. So, the center of the signature, 2 pockets, another tag. Some of them are double tags. A 1947 envelope that you can use for a pocket if you want, and a page of stamps. A tag I made out of an envelope, and a book page with numbers on it. Should be useful. That's vintage, both of those. I need to say something else besides vintage. Estate find, vintage, old. Old page. Old page. I put some inking on that to make that colors. Those were white. Here's another cluster that I just paper clipped in with a printout from the internet, from another 1800s book. All the images, if I got them off the internet, they're still from books from the 1800s. So a little smaller of that one. And all the fabric is vintage. So there's enough out there you can find that you don't have to buy new. A little gear Another cluster. This one has some hooks on it from a vintage little hook thing, and these are interesting to look at. They have all the different parts on there you'll discover. A couple bits that you can use in your journaling. I love the way that turned out. And that's actually shoe polish. Crafty Irina uses shoe polish, and so I tried a little on here because I wanted some different colors, and it works really nice. I'm going to do more of that. See, get a little different color than it was coffee dyed, and then I put some extra on there. That's embossed. Another cluster and a pocket. This is a 1974, a recipe, old recipe page. Lots of good stuff in there you can use. A couple pieces of old paper. Interesting things, hopefully to use in your journaling. And another rusty pen. From a book teaching you how to write. That's a printout. It's an 1800 printout off the internet. This is an actual piece of ephemera. I was trying to see what year. It's like 1900s, I think. Anyways, I really love the paper. And it's delicate, so I've taped some places that were coming apart, so you're going to have to... I think once you start building on it and gluing and adding things to it, it's going to be fine. It's fine now, but it is slightly delicate. So, and this is a estate find. Not sure what year, but it is very old. Another music card tag. Some original blue chip stamps. Another card that I stenciled some modeling paste on, raised it up, splattered it. A real ticket from 1947. This is an image that I'm working on for my digitals, and I think it's coming out pretty good. Little tag. Oops, I got another little round rusty piece and a vintage cluster with a picture of an old store, old stamp, some cutouts. These clusters are fun. I've been learning how to do them from Jessica Rapp at 2 Silver Oranges on YouTube, and having a lot of fun doing the clusters. So you get to use up a lot of your little bits, and then you guys can take these and make pockets out of them or add them to your journaling. And this is another glassine envelope, vintage glassine envelope. I put a whole bunch of postage stamps in it, a little heart, and another little printout. So that's a pile of vintage stamps. Little tag, little index card, another little index card. This is a little snippet band I made, and then I just made a little side pocket out of it. Old fabric and things I put in a little piece of crocheted thing that I've got off of something, some crocheted piece. Alright, I think we're just about there. There we go. And then a button on the spine, 3 signatures. That's a nice journal there. Alright, well, I'm going to put a link in the discussion box to my Etsy store, and this will be for sale. It's looking for a